Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at the RG podcast. This is Isaiah Diesel, joined with a very interesting guest who's harder to contact than the Pope, I must say, because we've been trying to schedule this thing for about 5 months now. So, would you mind? What do you want me to call you black, blatant atheist, or what exactly you want me to refer to you as?
Blatant Blatius. That's the name.
Blatant, not blatant black atheist.
Blatius is black atheist.
Okay,
Bla-
Blatius atheist.
blatant, blatant Blatius.
Okay, yeah, whatever that is. Yeah, I've been trying to have you on for a while, so I really appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate you taking out this time. And first and foremost, I just have to say thank you for your service to this country. My mom was a Vietnam veteran, and my sister served here in South Korea, where I live. So I just really want to start off by saying thank you for your service, sir.
Okay, so man, I appreciate you. You say you live in
And
South Korea?
I live, yeah. My wife's, in fact, she just called me right now, but my wife's Korean. We have a half Korean, half Mexican child. So uh, I do want to start first and foremost by we always do like a lightning quick round. We're going to be talking today primarily about primarily about racism, also reparations, but we are going to talk a bit about God. And so those are little touchy topics. So we always like to start off with something a little light and easy. So you ready for this?
Let's get it.
Okay. All right. So if you were stuck on a deserted island, what would be one item you would want with you?
My phone.
It ain't gonna work without no electricity, though. I'll tell you that. All right, here
As
we
long
go.
as
Next one. Oh, but you call for help. You call for help. Okay.
I
All
see.
right. Here we go. Next one. So if we are gonna make a feature film about your life, who would you want playing you? And don't say Denzel Washington. That's kind
I
of
say Denzel Washington. Huh?
Denzel.
Hey, huh? Sucker.
All right. Top three. Top three rappers of all time.
Top three who?
Rappers.
Rappers? Oh man, that's a hard one. Eminem's up there. Pac is up there just because he's Pac.
Because he's Pac.
Uh, I don't know about that third spot, man. I don't know. There's the two de
Jay
facto
Z,
names.
de
Jay's
facto.
not a
Jay, or how about Kanye? Let's go with Kanye, just so we can find
is
some common
not a
ground there.
man. Nah.
No? Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we definitely, if you agree that Tupac is the greatest rapper of all time, we're already off on a good start because I grew up listening to him. I remember when I found out that he died. My sister came and told me, and we just sat there and we cried, man. We cried like babies. Uh, our music was very touching, very powerful. But okay, here we go. And last question.
Dude,
You ready for this one? All right. So if you're gonna get killed by any fictional horror
let's go.
character, who would you want to die by? This is the big one. This is the big question.
That, uh,
Any?
you know what? It's gonna sound weird, but I would rather it be Freddy, because at least I can die in my sleep.
Yeah, that's funny. The best response to that officially has been another atheist I asked. They said Yahweh, so that was pretty good. All right, but 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10 actually people actually say Freddy, so that's a pretty common answer. Okay, here we go. So first and foremost, I would like you to tell me where you rate on a scale from 1 to 7 as far as atheism. 1 being you believe in God, and 7 being uh, 1 being you know that God exists, and 7 being that you know that God does not exist. So it's called the docking scale.
I'm around 6.
6. Okay. And can you tell me just very briefly about give me like a 2 minute nutshell version of your atheism testimony. Call it a testimony. I'm sure you know what that means. It's like as Christians we have testimonies that of us coming to
I'm
God. So how did you? Yeah, good.
28. I know what it means.
That's a joke. I'm saying that totally tongue in cheek.
So my testimony is I
That sounds so
was
bad. Don't say that. Don't. That
I'm
was the
saying it
one
now.
time thing. That was,
It's too late. It's too late. My testimony, I was a
you still, you
Christian
don't
for
still.
8 years, and I kept backsliding and
Mm-hmm.
got to the point where I got like really, really dedicated, and I was reading the Bible every day, every single day, like started trying to find ways to like prove, like I was basically studying to be an apologist pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I studied, the less it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to actually look into more of the other argument. And it was like, oh, okay. So these are things I've been afraid to say my entire
Mm-hmm.
life, but they
Mm-hmm.
make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
No,
kind of built from there.
totally. I totally get that. 100%. Actually, I became an atheist my freshman year of Bible college because I was asking my professors those kind of questions. It was a combination of that. One, two, I've shared this a few times, but I was in love with this girl, and then she went on to a missions trip in Indonesia, and she got bit by a snake and she died. So that was like, you know what I mean? You're in love with this Christian girl, is beautiful, not physically beautiful, just inside personally. And then that happened to her. And then it was also the combination of this happened in 2000. So the Bill Clinton impeachment trial was going on, and they were making fun of Bill Clinton. I mean, there were so many stones being thrown from their glass houses. It just made me want nothing to do with God. But so can you tell me real quick? I think you said you're about 32, so you've been atheist for about 4 years. Is that right?
33.
So about 5 years. By
Yeah.
the way, 33. That's a really good age to be at, man. If you're gonna die, dying at 33 would be a great age to die. But okay, anyway, that's a
No, I'm
joke.
cool.
You're a bit of a comedian, so I'm gonna throw little zingers at you. So, and I also try to use a little bit of comedy just to try to, you know, I mean, just so you know, some of these conversations can go. People get
Yeah,
really angry, start attacking
it's heated.
people. Like, what?
Said it gets heated. Yeah.
Yeah. So we like. I consider this like wiffle ball. We're you know what I mean. It's a light conversation. So
Yeah.
that being said, can you tell me a little bit about your channel? And I also believe that you're
Yeah.
releasing a mixtape. Is that correct? If you can tell me a little bit of background in there, and then we'll get
It
started with some of
has
these questions.
got you. So the channel started with me just like doing actual like just comedy. Like that's what it was meant to be, just me, just being silly old me. But I'm an atheist and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
trying to hide it. So the channel just became me being a funny atheist. I guess
Mm-hmm.
that was like the evolution of it. And the mixtape literally came out of Barr saying he wanted to do a mixtape. And I was like, hey, save me a
Mm-hmm.
verse. And then he sent me a bunch of beats and it became an entire mixtape.
Yeah,
That's
I
literally how that
gotta
happened.
I gotta say, unfortunately, some of them beats are, and some of them rhymes are, they're all right, man. I mean, you ain't at Tupac level, but you know, yeah. So, okay. So that being said, how long you been doing this channel for?
It'll be I think a year in March.
Okay.
Yeah.
And but just for the record, you haven't been able to do this recently because you recently made a transition with you're in the army. Is that correct?
No. I was in the Air Force. Now I just work for the government.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'm a
All right.
civilian
Well,
again.
all right. Well, I take back my thanks for you serving. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Did
But
you
I
say that
still
you?
serve.
No, I know. I'm joking. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's a total joke. Actually, did you say you lived in? Did you say you served at a time in Korea?
I lived in Korea for 3 years, but as a civilian.
As a civilian working for the government?
Yep. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you got some intelligence behind you if they're willing to take you on like it's a civilian. So that's good. All right. So I do want to start off here. Now we're going to get into the actual taters, the meat and
Mm.
taters of this. Some of these, as I said, some of these are going to be a little bit rough. So if you want to use some PG or PG-13 rated comedy, that'll be great because these are not going to be easy ones here. So we'll start first and foremost with this first one. but why do you think there's so few black atheists? Uh, and then also too, why do you think that they're growing these days?
There are so few black atheists because it's not acceptable culturally.
Hmm.
Like you have to think about the history of like just black neighborhoods in general
Hmm.
are like all the black towns were built around the church. You have to remember that.
Uh-huh.
So being black and Christian is kind of synonymous, but it's growing now
Kind of
because
like synonymous.
it's yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's
And
kind of a oxymoron to be black and
right.
atheist. Like
So
we don't exist.
do you believe it's similar to why most blacks are liberals? And whenever you see someone like, let's just say Alan Keyes, or who's that other black cat? Who's really oh, Larry Alder. Whenever you see someone like them, you just see them as, a lot of people see them as like a sellout. Do you see any
Yeah,
kind of connection there?
sort of. I mean, I would say the connection is indoctrination. That's the
Hmm.
biggest connection. We're indoctrinated to believe that Democrats are better for us than Republicans when it's literally the same coin with two different sides.
Exactly. Can I get a bump on that one?
Oh hell yeah.
Because we are like, I mean, I'm definitely more liberal,
Yeah.
relatively. I mean, if you put me on a spectrum, I would be like 55% liberal, like 45% conservative. Because going over to either extreme is like not really good either way, you know. In fact, we're, you know what I'm saying. In fact, we're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with, we're helping out. This channel right now is helping support this former Nazi who
Mm-hmm.
is now like fighting for racial peace and justice and all that stuff, all that good stuff, bridge building. And his name's Jeff Scoop. He's came on a couple of times, but he was talking about how Antifa wanted him to go over to their side, and he's like, "You guys are just as much extremists, but in this other direction. Like I'm trying to meet in the middle." And trying to, promote peace and understanding, empathy, and that's why if you look at our emblem, we use purple, and if you can see the R's, they're like inverted on each other, so that we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to see from different perspectives. So, thank you for that one. I do want to say this. I did have a conversation with the guy you talked about, Bar, named
Mm-hmm.
Black Atheist Rants, and he told me that he thought that one of the reasons why is because the church has been like a place of sanctuary
Yeah.
for Black people. So it's kind of like going against, kind of like biting a hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
Do you see any ability in that?
I do see validity in that. And it's like you don't want to be, for lack of a better term, the black sheep. You know what I
The
mean?
black sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if everybody around you is
Hmm.
Christian and you're the one saying this doesn't make sense,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like your entire social network is built upon this belief, pretty much.
Right. And so, yeah, good. So, all right. So, I would love to talk with him. Who's this guy? Okay, just got a quote from him. I'm not even sure what it's about. Maybe he'll want to come in at the end. But okay, that being said, as a Black atheist, do you feel,
Mhm.
one, that Black atheism is on the rise right now? Because obviously, I came on the channel. There were like a bunch of Black atheists that came after me on his channel, but so apparently there's a lot of them out there. One, and then two, um, do you believe it's kind of like you might get like a sellout label in the same way as whenever you see Black conservatives, they're called like Uncle Toms, or that word, Uncle Tom.
Yeah, it's Uncle
Uncle.
Tom. Yeah.
So
I
yeah, what do you
don't
think about
see
those two
that
things?
being an issue. Yeah, I don't see that being an issue
Hmm.
because my blackness is not being called into question. My sanity may be, but not my blackness.
All right, and so then the other part of the question was, why do you believe that, or do you have any reason to think why Black atheism is growing?
Because there's a lot more information to be found. Of course, like information is easier to get than ever before. And also the big reason is because of like what you just said. When you say you were attacked by a bunch of black atheists from Bar's channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we can now connect with other people that think like us.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the big thing. Like when you start having these thoughts and stuff stop making sense, and you get to go online and see somebody say, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like,
Okay.
thank you. That's why.
Thank you.
It's safer. It's safer now.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So the next question I want to ask you is, because this actually is related within the racism, and I do want to touch on this mental health issue that you mentioned. I we will get to that one in a bit, but we'll try to do these in line. But the first one is, does systematic racism exist, and if so, how can we combat it? Floor to you.
It absolutely does. Yeah, absolutely it does. I'm trying to mess with Kim. There you
And
go. So
what was that?
systematic racism absolutely exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can look at redlining practices that have been in place since before either of us or our parents were even thought of, that are still in place. You can look at the way colleges give out scholarships, and people still get mad and say, "What about all this? What is it? What do they say we get? Like our privilege all of a sudden is what it's like." Oh, I can't even
You talking
think
about
of it now
affirmative
because I
action?
don't. That's the one. That's the one. Affirmative action. They say, well, that equals it out. No, it doesn't. Because the system is still geared to keep a certain type of person with a foot ahead. And even if it wasn't, what people don't understand is that if I'm starting black, I'm starting with a handicap. You're already 100 steps ahead of me before the game even gets to begin. So I'm playing catch up from birth. That's the systematic. That's the setup. You know what I mean? The way to combat it, I think we're going to talk about this later, would be reparations, but not cash.
Not cash.
Nah.
Not that Cash Money Records. That's my line.
Not
That's
taking
still
over
that
for the
line.
9-9.
I'm like, I'll hit someone. I'll be like a ping pong. I'll be like, oh, Cash Money Records right there. Boom. Take that. I'm from the hood. I think we're both from the hood, so we kind of understand some things
Cash Money ain't taking
already.
over for the 9-9 no more.
Yeah. All right. I don't know what that second part meant, but yeah. But okay. So we are going to talk about reparations. I'm hip, but not that hip. I'm not black hip. I'm Mexican. So we're like right in between the blacks and the whites. You know what I mean? We're right. All right. So yeah. So the next question is, what do you
You're
think
right
about
at the Mexican. You're not between nothing.
Yeah. So, well, interesting. I will share one quick thing about me and my story. But so growing up Mexican, right? So my parents from Mexico, and they didn't want to teach us Spanish, right? Because they thought it would hurt us, ironically. But so going to school, it's like, yeah, we are in between two worlds. One, we're not white, so we don't fit in with the white people totally. And then the Mexicans think that we're salads. I know you know this term Oreo, which is like a black person who's black on the outside and white on the inside. Well, they call someone like me a coconut. Or they actually call it like Asian people Twinkies, like yellow on the outside, white on the inside. So for me, it's a coconut being I hate that word, but
man, you ran in some racist circles. I've never heard these terms.
You never heard them? Oh man, yeah.
I've heard Oreo. I've heard yeah, of course I've heard Oreo because I'm exposed to that, of course. But coconut, I've never heard coconut.
Well, you're not Mexican, but so you've been called an Oreo before then?
No, I have not. No.
All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I do have that experience of really being kind of in between two worlds as it is. One. Second thing, though, I do want to say is if we take a look at history, right? Because a lot of this is going to come down to slavery, right? Because and I wrote a book about Haiti. I went down to Haiti and volunteered there after the earthquake. And what happened is you have the French brought slaves to the America via Africa. And as a result of that, you have several hundred years going on where no one's able to make any money, invest any money, buy any land, pass on any kind of wages to down to their children. Okay, and so
Mhm.
this idea of reparations is not even that far out there, because I want to tell you what France did. France said that because Haiti took away their slaves, right? They lost out on their property, because that's how they viewed
Mhm.
these people. They lost their property. So therefore, Haiti, oh, listen to this. It gets better. Just listen to this. They said Haiti not only has to pay us back for the property, they have to pay us back on the money we would have made in the next like 100 years or so. So this idea, you got to understand something. As colonizers, they at least understood this, that like labor it is equals money, it equals power, right? And so
Mhm.
if we've taken this for people for hundreds of years, it doesn't matter if you set everybody free if the
Exactly.
systems have already been ingrained inside of in government and housing and banking institutions. Then it's
Mhm.
irrelevant whether or not you make everybody free. That's like a non sequitur, right? What do you think
Yeah,
about that?
that is right on the money. But the issue is, we live in a country. Well, I live in a country because you're in Korea, you lucky duck.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the issue is, I live in a country where we are literally taught more indoctrination.
Hmm.
Bootstraps. That's all we get. Bootstraps. I can do it, so can you, because propaganda.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're right on the money. We do need reparations because we were like, our labor was taken from us.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hundreds of years of what could have been passed down was taken from us.
Right. 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 Okay. Yeah. So I do want to lead into this because you've kind of hinted at this, but
Mm,
we will get a little bit deeper into this, okay? Because I had a friend who, at the age of 18, either 18 or 19, his dad was killed at work, okay?
mm.
So the company had an insurance policy out on him. And because I guess it was at work, he got paid twice out what it was, right? So
Wow.
my friend got $50,000 cash money records at the age of 19, okay? What do you think that cat did with that?
He spent it
Take
all.
a wild guess.
Yeah.
How long you think it took him to spend 50K, 50 large?
Within a year. At the
Within a
very
year, yeah.
longest, within a year.
He didn't quite make it a year. It's like around 10 months. But
Yep.
what do you think would happen if you took your average guy from the hood and slapped 100 G's in his pocket, right? What do you think would
Mhm.
happen
It depends.
on average? Like just,
On average, that money
yeah.
would be spent, but that's the issue.
Hmm. Please elaborate.
The issue is, that's not going to fix the system.
Right, right, right.
Reparations are supposed to repair us to get us to where we should be had the
Hmm.
system worked evenly throughout history. But
Hmm.
money isn't going to do that. You have to fix the system.
Right.
You give me $100,000 and the bank still won't let me buy a house due to redlining. What the hell I'm gonna do with this money?
Hmm.
That's why, like, you see, like, the first thing you think of, you give somebody from the hood, give them $100,000. You're gonna buy cars and jewelry, because that's what we
Jerry.
were allowed to have.
Hmm.
That's more indoctrination. That's our goals, because that's what we were allowed to have.
Um, yeah, so you literally might wind up killing some of those guys, because what's going to happen is they're going to be, stomping the club. Maybe they're going to be doing a few bumps here and there. Who knows what kind of mischief they might get in with that 100 G's. If you had something more like a stake in something like stock options or something like that, which, a lot of Caucasian people do, that might be something that's, like if for instance, if they were given 100, let's say you have that 100,000, but you
Mm.
say you cannot spend this money within the next 10 years. You have to invest this, right? So that
Mm.
would be one way to going about, to where you're just not going to ensure that these people just have a downfall. That way they could learn about, investing, diversifying,
I
et
mean,
cetera,
that
et cetera.
doesn't help either. That doesn't help either. Because what we need to, like, the big thing that we need to realize is that it's not just black people that are held down. It's poor people in general.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why public schools suck.
right,
So reparations would be fixing our education.
right,
Reparations would be making public colleges
right.
free. That's what
Yeah.
reparations should be.
See, and
Reparations should be making our, like, making sure that if we're all paying taxes, our taxes are going to our neighborhood
right,
evenly. You know what I mean?
right, right, right. Yeah. So let me just clarify a little bit more.
Mm,
I do believe in reparations because I studied the history of this and wrote a book about it, how it existed in Haiti and how Haiti was forced to repay back not only the money that they would get for the slaves that France
yeah,
would have gotten for the slaves, but also for the work that they lost out on the
yeah,
potential revenue that they had, right? So so I've studied a little bit about this. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I do want to say this that if I were to work out reparations, because I know that's a bad route to go down. I've seen it one with my friend, and then just look at any other rapper or any other NBA player. Why are all of these cats? It's something like 60% of them, tens
mm,
of millions of dollars. Look at that Anton Walker, man,
mm,
dude made ridiculous money in his life and is broke within a couple of years to stop playing. You know what I mean? So
mm,
there's bigger things to think about, but I would think if you just came to me and you said, what would be the one way in which you could do reparations that are going to be longer lasting? And that would
mm.
be free education for, I would say, like all black people for like the next, like, you can't
That's
do
here's
something
the other
indefinitely.
thing that here's the
Hold on.
thing that no, here's the thing you have
Hold,
to
hold,
realize. The way our government works is that they would try to make you prove that you are a descendant of slavery.
mm-hmm.
And we don't have those records. We don't have that proof because of just the way that slavery worked.
Right,
Separations of family, stuff like that.
right,
So saying that all black people, no, just change the system. Just make college free. It doesn't have to be for any general group. Just make college free. Make it
right,
available for us.
right. So that would be what I'm trying to say is it would have to be several different things. And the other thing I would say would be some kind of land grant. And I
Mm,
talked about this earlier, maybe like set aside like a state where like no one lives in, like Montana, or there's nothing in. Put black people on a reservation. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. But no,
I'm gonna say,
seriously,
all righty then.
no, no. Sorry, that's a bad joke. But giving them an area in which they have like a tax free zone, and also just have to be able to have ownership on things. Because I think again that's a big thing, and I know what you're getting at as far as the overall systemic problems that exist. I mean, just think about this.
Mm,
It used to be the case that like I recently did the research on this for debate I was going to have with Oz. I know you know Oz, but
yeah,
we were
that's my
scheduled to
guy.
have this. We were scheduled to have this debate, um, but but what I did cancel it for a reason we will talk about in a minute. But I'm going to say this that we okay, sorry, actually lost my that actually that triggered. Okay. So it used to be the case that something like it took something like around like 500 people in America. You took like the 500 richest people, and it would
Mm,
equal like the bottom 50% of America. Okay, like 500 people.
yeah.
Okay, it was a really small number. The problem is though is that over the last like 10 years, we're just talking about 10 years here. So
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, it would have taken 500 cats to equal the bottom 50%. Now it only takes like 10 people to equal the bottom
Yeah,
50% because as they say, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poor, but it's getting to like outrageous levels, right?
yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think Bernie Sanders should be the president.
All right.
That's what I
Well,
think.
you can find some common ground there. All right. Well, here we go. On to the next question. So you talked a bit about reparations. Do you believe that the Black Lives Matter movement are hurting their own cause?
No, not at all.
Okay. What do you think? What are your
I
thoughts on
think I think there are people within every group known to
that?
man
Hmm.
that are going to mess something up.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of Black Lives Matter, I'm not talking about an organization. I'm not talking about somebody collecting a check. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the idea of Black Lives Matter. The movement is amazing
Elaborate.
because they're bringing attention to something that has been happening my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was moving back, like this, literally the week before I was about to get out of the Air Force and move back to St. Louis, Mike Brown was murdered by
Yo,
Derek
who?
Chauvin. Mike Brown.
Oh, Mike
Hands
Brown.
up,
Mike
don't
Brown.
shoot. Where it started. Hands up, don't shoot. That's where it started. That was a week before I was moving back to St.
Mm-hmm.
Louis with my then pregnant wife.
Wow.
Terrified. So seeing what has taken place since then is encouraging as hell. Because
Mm-hmm.
without it, it just keeps happening and nobody's talking about it. Like nobody's bringing it up before that. Because it's not like Mike Brown was an anomaly, like it never happened. Just got swept
Yeah.
under the rug. And now you see people changing their pleas because they choked out somebody on camera. Now those people are going to prison instead of being transferred.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So then here's the next question I want to ask you with that, because I believe in principle with what they're doing, but
Mhm.
they should be saying, like, their slogan should be Black Lives Matter equally, because when people hear the phrase Black Lives Matter, a lot of white people, a lot of people who maybe are just neutral, they hear like they matter, like they're more important than other people, and so they give like a
That
it
doesn't
gives.
make sense.
I,
No,
I
see,
know it
here's
doesn't make sense. I know.
no, but
I
here's the
know it
thing.
doesn't make
No,
sense. I know.
they shouldn't change anything. They don't have to change anything because those people are coming in with the bias. That's not our
Let, let,
problem.
let me finish my thought, because
Mm-hmm.
what they should be saying is you open the ground for people to say Blue Lives Matter or White Lives Matter, whatever. It opens that up. So what I would phrase it as is Black Lives Matter equally, because clearly, if we're being objective, it is clearly the case that Black lives do not matter equally in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
Right, in the law. I will tell you one interesting story. Have you know Michael Moore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he made a movie called Roger and Me, which is like his first movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you saw that movie?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard.
You've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So in that movie, he shows this woman kill a rabbit, right? She
Mm-hmm.
hits the rabbit a few times in the head, and then she skins it on thing, right? So whenever this went to the movie theater, people were infuriated that he allowed that to be shown, that this woman butchering and eating this rabbit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then Michael Moore's like, man, the joke's on you guys. He goes, the joke's on you. He goes, because you guys all just got punked. I did a social experiment. I showed a black guy getting shot 5 minutes after that, and nobody complained about that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like there'd been a desensitized to black people dying, or so. Let me give you another example. Maybe that's not the best example, but
Mm-hmm. No,
so,
that's a pretty good example.
but let's just think about this. And this is no disrespect to Lacey Peterson, or no disrespect to the other girl who disappeared in Aruba. I can't think of her name right now, but Natalie Holloway. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Natalie Holloway. No, these cases should have been covered with all due diligence. So I want to be very clear about that. But just ask yourself for 2 seconds: do you think this would have gotten the national headline attention if this been a overweight, black girl with pimples in Chicago, like Chicago suburbs? And you don't even have to think about that. You would know clearly if that were the case, you would not get this kind of coverage that was so you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's just like, it's uncomfortable to have these conversations, but we have to be honest in saying, look, clearly black lives do not matter in the same way, and other people's lives matter as well. And unfortunately, I have to say this too, and I do want to get your opinion on this,
Mm-hmm.
because it's unfortunately the case that for the Black Lives Matter movement, it seems like Black lives don't even matter in the same way if they're being killed by fellow Black people, right? It's like you only
I've
see
heard
this
that one.
outrage.
Yeah.
You only see this outrage whenever it's being done by white people.
You
But
want to know why that is, though? Want me to tell you why
good,
that is?
please,
Because it's not
please.
about it being done by white people. It's about it being done by those who are supposed to be enforcing the law.
Mm-hmm.
So when the little black boy down the street kills the little black boy up the street, the little black boy down the street goes to prison.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Chauvin is still running around. Or not
Mm-hmm.
Derek Chauvin, the dude that killed Mike Brown. Can never remember his name.
Okay, I think Chauvin went to prison though, right?
Yeah, Chauvin's in prison. Yeah. His was on
I can't
camera.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really stay up to date.
Yeah, it's too
But no,
much.
okay,
Yeah, it's too much.
okay. So I understand what you're saying in principle with that, but I do want to give a counter example to that that might make you think about this in a different way. If you take a look at what happened, like in South Africa under the apartheid system,
Mm-hmm.
the situation was absolutely horrible, and apartheid should absolutely have been ended. And I'm not making any excuses for that. Okay. But if you take a look at the outrage that happened under those circumstances, it was a lot less than a lot of the other genocide and a lot of other human rights abuses that you saw under people like Idi Amin, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So blacks, I hate to say this, but it's just in reality, blacks are a lot worse to other blacks than the perceived abuse of
Everybody's a
black.
lot worse
Right?
to the person next to them than the person across the town.
Mm, that's a good point.
That's just facts. White people kill
Mm-hmm,
more white people than black people. Black people
mm-hmm,
kill more black people than white people because we are in proximity. That's just
mm-hmm.
how it works. If a wife
Yeah,
dies, the
that's.
first person to get questioned is the husband.
Mm-hmm. But okay, I that's a really good point. Really, really appreciate that point. Uh, but but if saving Black lives mattered the most, and I'm saying they should
Mm-hmm.
matter. This should be a top priority for us to address. But doesn't it seem like Black Lives Matter then rather than doing all these protests or whatever, maybe going into the inner city and doing more mentorship and providing some kind of
But they do that.
opportunities?
They
They
do
do.
that.
Okay,
That's
I'm
the
not
issue.
familiar with that too.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
do
good,
all
good.
that. They still march for peace. When you go to LA, you see people marching for the gang violence to stop. People are marching in Chicago for the gang violence to stop. But that's not what the media covers because nobody gives a fuck about that. Sorry.
Oh
Nobody
no,
cares about that. My bad. Because
it's all
nobody
good.
cares about that. They care
Yeah.
about the provocative
Mm-hmm,
BLM because everybody's going to tune into that because they've been told
mm-hmm,
to hate it.
mm-hmm.
So that's the American media doing that.
Mm-hmm.
When they march for peace within the inner cities, nobody cares about that. There's no cameras.
Yeah.
Nobody's covering that. But when they
Yeah.
stand outside of the White House, oh yeah, this is prime.
And you know what? For the record, too, these ex-Nazis who
Mm-hmm.
we've been interviewing and helping them out, they help
Mm-hmm.
people now deconvert from a life of hatred, and they really are in peace building and bridge building. But he said flat out on there, like, if we did a protest where people they wouldn't attack us or they just wouldn't give us any coverage, he's like, we got so demoralized after that. Because
Yeah.
there was this one case he was talking about where the police put like a corridor where they couldn't pass to come to these protests, and so they went and they did their little rally and stuff, but basically they just left and nothing really happened. But he's like, man, I will tell you this: if people came out and started fighting us, he says that incensed us because they had a policy, very strict policy, that they could not attack anyone unless they got attacked. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
it gave them permission to use violence. One, and then that's whenever the media really came out, was
Yeah.
whenever there were these clashes, and they actually did have a Black Lives. They did actually clash with the Black Lives Matter on multiple occasions. But I do want to change this up for a second. Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about God for a little bit?
Okay.
Because I do want to ask you this. What are your thoughts on this? Because uh, evolution has been used very frequently citing citing as like blacks being inferior or like
Mm.
closer in the evolutionary status to monkeys. And so I know it's horrible, but people like King Leopold, like in Belgium, have said, "Hey, look, clearly these people are less civilized. They're closer to Neanderthals. We
Mm.
have some rights to come over and be over these people." So, do you think that atheism can contribute at all to that feeling of superiority?
No,
No.
not even a little bit. 'Cause if you look like the same way I can look at someone saying that they don't believe in evolution because they
Mm-hmm.
believe in the creator and all this stuff, I can look at somebody like Leopold and say, okay, you don't understand the science. If you understood the science, you wouldn't be saying that. A stupid statement is a stupid statement by anybody.
Right, but you do understand. Excuse me. You don't understand. Most people don't understand the science behind evolution. So I'm talking about what your average person might take in and listen to the facts, and that's what they would assume from it, right?
Some can if you're pre-programmed to believe that. But somebody with common sense would understand that if you're looking at evolution, everything has evolved alongside each other. So there's no more advanced. There's just differently. There's just different
Right.
evolution.
So okay, then I will pose this question to you because when I was an atheist, for I don't know, maybe around 19. I think I became but atheist about 19,
Mm.
and maybe to about the age of 29.
Mm.
Um, no, 32 is actually. I kind of had some different, kind of like went into like deism or agnosticism for a while, but
Mm.
one of the things that pushed me into like this deism camp was I went to North Korea, and I saw like the oppression of the people there firsthand, and I
Uh,
tried to like evaluate this inside of my beliefs on evolution and a godless universe, and I stopped and I was like what grounds do I actually say that Kim Jong Un isn't in his mind higher above some? He's just a higher evolved creature than the rest of these North Koreans, and he's using them like I would use a sheep or a goat or whatever.
uh,
And I was like, man, I can't really make an argument really inside of my beliefs. So I didn't become a Christian as a result of that, but it put like a really big crack in the ceiling for me.
I can help you with that. I have
Yeah,
an
please,
argument
please,
for that right
please,
now.
please, good, please. That's why you're
Kim
here.
Jong Un has been raised to be a brat, and he uses propaganda to control people.
Hmm.
Like that's it. That's
Yeah.
it. He does see himself above them because they're poor, and he keeps them that way. So of course
Hmm.
he sees himself as above them. That's
Hmm.
what humans do. That's all throughout human history.
All
And
right.
that was not hard at all.
Okay. So let me just ask you
Mhm.
blatantly,
There
pardon
you
the
go.
pun, but but what is the difference between me owning slaves and me owning sheep and grazing sheep and taking their and what's it called when you take shearing them? What's the
Mhm.
difference between me shearing people, a black person, or the North
Mhm.
Korean people, and me shearing a sheep in your
Would you
terms?
want that done to you? Would it
No,
be okay for me to do that to you?
no.
That's why. That's
Um,
why. Because we're both humans. There's an understanding of what a human can tolerate. There's an understanding of what's okay to be done to me. So I'm not going to do it to another human. A sheep doesn't have that understanding. We may find out 100 years from now that we've been torturing very intelligent creatures and we just didn't realize it. But as it stands right now, you and I are human beings. I
mhm.
know I wouldn't want that done to me, so I wouldn't do it to you.
So where exactly where does this fall in your mind then? Because in South Korea,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, well, I don't really care. I never really owned a dog before. We actually did recently
Mm-hmm.
get a dog. You probably know where I'm going with this, but
Yeah, I know exactly where
my
you're going.
parents didn't allow me to have a dog growing up. Which after seeing my daughter interact with the dog, I'm like, I feel
Mm-hmm.
totally robbed out of my childhood. But Yeah, really. But we eat dogs in South Korea, and
Yeah.
one of the things which is so offensive to me is that you will have people come in here and raid dog farms and take they're just these virtue warriors, and they
Yeah.
raid these dog farms, and they adopt them. They go through
Yeah.
all this energy, right? And yet, right above the north, couple hundred kilometers in a under an atheistic regime, you have people being put into worse conditions.
Is it an
It,
atheistic regime? Is it?
oh yeah, it's actually, look at that. Look at that. You see that? See that right there?
Uh,
Can you see that? That's atheism. That's a North Korean atheistic. It's their official doctrine. It's called Juche. So I got this. Listen to this. I got this tattooed on my right hand, inside of Israel, saying "F you to God." Like, I don't need you. Like, seriously, I'm being serious. And like 5 months later, I had a religious conversion where, I mean, I'll show you a picture. I had like this Osama bin Laden beard, a turban. I went and chilled out in Palestine for. I had a crazy story, but
yeah.
yeah, I know it's. I wouldn't recommend my story. Lots. I mean, I had like a rapper's lifestyle, but just without like the rapping and fame and stuff like that. I mean, I had a really crazy lifestyle. But actually, I would like to transition.
Mm.
Let's take a step away from there, because you obviously is someone who's a strong individual. You made it to the military. You got a wife, family, kids, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like you're really balanced person, okay? But let's say I take someone like a biker or whatever, who winds up having a religious conversion or whatever. This can be something that's very grounding to them. I've
Mm.
seen people, drug addicts, drug addicts, and you know what I mean, gang members and stuff like that, who've
Yeah.
had their lives really transformed. I know I've had my life transformed by this message. So
Yeah.
if that's something that's helping me, I generally don't understand. Like, if let's say it doesn't work for you, and that's fine. Like, if you know that this is something that has grounded someone and has the potential to really help their lives, like, why would you
Mm.
go after that belief and just say, hey, I don't believe in this? Like, I don't believe in tarot cards. But I don't care what they do with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
whatever they believe in tarot cards, you read people's palms, whatever.
Yeah.
That is it.
I,
I'm not
here's the
gonna go after
thing.
their talent.
I
Yeah,
don't
good.
know where you're going with the question, but I have never like logged into any social media site or anything like that and commented under a Christian's post and saying, he's fake. Like I don't
Well, that's where I was going with it.
like
Yeah, good.
I'm not an
Please.
atheist apologist. Like I make videos for atheists.
Hmm.
If you Christian and it helps you be a better person, sweet. But
Yeah,
it doesn't help everybody be a better person. It destroys lives as well as it saves them.
it makes people worse, right?
Yeah, it can. It's
Yeah.
not a universal rule, but it can. Atheism
Well,
can as well. It's like humans are humans.
yeah. Well, that's been one of the greatest things I've had in these interactions, that people have really helped me to see that it kind of like people have these internal guidelines or whatever, and if that's off, it doesn't matter
Mm.
if they go to religion or atheism. Like, they're gonna find a way, because there are most most the not KKK Nazi, those guys, most of them are Christians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then there's also an atheist religion called the creativity movement, where they do the evolutionary thing. We're just better by science and biology. So
Yeah.
that's been very interesting. But I do want to transition back to.
Before you transition though,
Yeah, good.
let me say this about religion. You say like the way it helps people.
Hmm.
A lot more people would be helped by a therapist. I'll just say that. Instead of going to church and getting that message, actually find out what's going on with you internally. That helps a lot too. Or a mix of both.
Yeah, I would say so. After I became a Christian, I had a situation where I was actually in my room and Jesus Christ spoke to me. Okay.
Mm.
So when I told my family about that, they said, "You're going to." I told them on it. I mean, they got this on a Sunday. They said, "Tomorrow morning, you are going into counseling." Literally, church ended. And they sat me down like tomorrow morning, and I spent a year in counseling. So I I
Mm.
literally recommend counseling for everybody,
Yeah.
like across the board, atheist, Muslim, Hindu. I would
Yeah.
because it's really what the problem with our lives is that we see ourselves so subjectively. Um, did you ever see the movie Cloud Atlas?
Nope, but I have seen freaking the Jim Carrey movie. Dang it, what is the name of it? Truman Show. That's the one.
Truman Show. Well, okay, so in Cloud Atlas, there's a Korean. Some of it's based in Korea, but she says to truly know yourselves is to see yourself from the eyes of another person, from a third
Mm.
perspective, because we're also biased. In fact, I mean, like I was an alcoholic and a womanizer and stuff, and like if you would have talked to me back then at that point, I would have been like, "Well, hey, I like having a good time." You know what I mean? I would have made some kind of justification if I could go back and talk to myself uh 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Oh, like, well, I just don't want to be tied down by a relationship. I just, you know what I mean? So but when I told my counselor the kind of stuff I did, it was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, actually articulating it. It's
Yeah.
like something so different whenever you're talking about it and actually evaluating the things that you've done. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. So, but yeah, maybe a combination of the both. I'd say probably 99% of the people I know, I would recommend to see a counselor because, and this growing up, that's like this blacks and Mexicans is like, it's seen as like a really bad thing, like,
Exactly.
right? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Mental
You give
health.
it to God and you leave it alone. Yeah.
Well, I think it's just an attack, more of an attack on your like manhood, because as blacks and Mexicans, it's like, hey, someone disrespects you, you say, let's take this outside, let's knuckle it up, da da da.
Mm.
You know what I mean? That's a really unhealthy conflict resolution problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or is it,
Well,
so
like in
yeah,
amongst minorities, period, therapy is something that's looked down upon.
right, right.
Like you're either crazy, you're weak, you're not holy enough, you're not giving it to God, you don't have enough faith to get through this situation when the whole time is a chemical imbalance and you're bipolar. There's
Hmm.
nothing anybody can do about that in church.
Yeah, actually,
Therapy's the way.
can you tell me basically? Can you just sum up what your prayer? You made something like prayer, like I'll be putting in work or something like that. You were talking like that.
Talking about prayer without work?
Was that a good rendition of your song?
No, no, not at
No,
all.
okay. Well, what's the chorus of your song? 'Cause I thought that was really good.
It's is prayer without work is dead. So I stopped praying and just work instead.
That's it. That's the whole chorus.
Oh, there's like the I'ma get it, I'ma get it. It's weird to
I'ma
just
get it.
say
Whip
it.
that chick. You know what I'm
And
saying?
then the
No,
second half is they say prayer without work is dead. So what am I praying for? I'll work instead.
actually,
That's how I look at it.
I was hating on a lot of your music, but that's actually a pretty good one because a lot of Christians are like, actually, there's an expression we have inside of Christianity that people are so heavenly minded that they're of no
Mm.
earthly good. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of things we could be doing as Christians that there's, well, we'll just pray for it. Like, my
Yeah.
friend needs help
Thoughts and
moving, or son needs
prayers.
help. I'll just pray for it. Like, nah,
Yeah.
man, get
Thoughts
your
and
hands
prayers.
dirty. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Get this, as Bar says, get this work, cuz. All right, all right. So last question. Um, what are some societal changes that are necessary to promote more equality? Because we kind of touched on that at the beginning, but if you could give us your thoughts on that.
I think I think one of the biggest changes that needs to be had is no longer having corporations being known as people. That doesn't make sense. They shouldn't have voting power and they shouldn't be able to contribute to our
Hmm.
freaking politicians and have them working for them. Basically, that's why we have oligarchy. Also, we need to have the media become the media again. There's too many
Hmm.
unbiased sources that are completely biased. Even CNN is horrible. I'm an independent. We need to stop. Like, I think the whole two-party system needs to be dealt away with because
Hmm.
it's psychological. That's what it is. It's psychological. It makes you pick your team and ride with them no matter what. Like
Right.
somebody
Ride or
being, I'm
die.
a Steelers fan. I don't care what they say. I don't care what
Hmm.
Roethlisberger did. I'm a Steelers fan. That's what being a Republican is. No matter what they
Right.
do, no matter how much they ruin your life, because most Republicans are poor.
Hmm.
It's just the people that are in charge that have the money because they take advantage of their poor, uneducated base.
Yeah, that's a lot of things you would say about Christianity. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
have a problem to join in and say like most of the stuff you say is actually right. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so because I do think people can get carried away and or taking things out of context and might even use it as a as a reason to be racist or
Yeah.
nationalistic, pro America, America number
Yeah.
one. You know what I mean? Like I take a step back, not only just because I don't live in America, but even if I did live in America, I'd be like, there's other countries in the world. Like, if I
Oh,
was
dude,
like,
after living in Korea for 3 years, that's
yeah,
where me and my
yeah.
wife wanted to retire. Like we had to come back
Oh,
here just to
okay.
reset our
Come
time.
back,
We
man.
want to retire in Korea.
Is your wife black, by the way? Or is she
Yeah,
Korean?
she's black. Yeah, we both grew
All
up in
right.
St. Louis and we love Korea.
St. Louis. All right. Yeah. Well, anytime, man, you got a place to come crash out, man. We'll go out for some mom's fried chicken. We was talking
I
about
will
fried
see you
chicken
next
before.
week.
Yeah. um, yeah, that's really good. So I don't have a problem. Virtually every almost everything that you would say about Christianity, especially like the right wing, the
Yeah,
abusive side of that, I'd
yeah.
jump in on with you to criticize those people as well because I'm a libertarian. Like I believe in Christianity, but I don't believe we should be forcing it, shoving it down people's throats.
Yep,
From the government. It's like
yep.
um, so in that sense, I would say I'm a secular humanist, but on the other hand, it's definitely something that has helped me personally. It's helped reunite me with my wife. We have a daughter now.
Mm.
She's born right in the
Like I
Olympics.
said, like I
So
told you, like
after
my
5 years
two
divorce,
biggest
listen to this
things.
story.
Uh, mm,
Good.
yeah, my two biggest things are mental health, not saying let God fix it, and
Hmm.
separation of church and state because your
Sure.
religion is not everybody in this country's religion, and you shouldn't make
Sure.
government decisions based upon your religion. That's my two biggest things. So if it makes you a better person, I'm all for it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Just don't try to make me a better person by forcing it on me. That's all.
Absolutely. And we actually did almost virtually nothing really clashed heads. And I said these kind of conversations I like to have, but I do like a little bit of a little bit of a pushback.
Yeah.
And but I do think a lot of stuff you have to say are like dead on. Like um, actually, I will tell you this because my mom actually suffered. She was a minister's wife. She actually just got into like an accident one day, and
Mm,
unfortunately, that started her on a journey of substance abuse with
mm, opiates.
uh, opiates. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we had to like hide this from like church congregate. I mean, it caused a lot of problems inside of her family, but
Yep.
kind of like this, it's like an embarrassment. And I didn't understand this at the time, unfortunately, because I was like, young. But like my mom had emotional and mental problems that were just exacerbated by the drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And so at a later stage of her life, she did start to get counseling, but had she been able to do that years and years beforehand,
Yep.
um, I believe because she was like a Vietnam veteran, you know what I mean? As I said, my
Yeah.
mom was in the army. She served in the Vietnam veteran, so that really messed her up a lot. And
Yeah.
just all this really abusive uh, childhood and stuff. She never addressed it, so I can say we're dead on board with that sense because my mom's dead now, and I
Mm,
positively believe she could have been alive had she addressed a lot of these. And so, kind of like being as a minister's son, I had
mm,
a lot of resentment towards my father for that. You know what I mean? It
yep.
took a lot of healing on my part to get to the point where I could even talk to my dad anymore. Because
Yeah.
I literally just in South Korea just didn't talk to him for years. So now we have a great relationship, and but that's just one of those things. It did take a lot of healing to get over that. So yeah, do you have any last thoughts, bro?
Um. Nah, man, not really. My last thoughts are I would love to do this again, brother. You cool as hell. No pun intended.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, you cool, man. We normally sent out a Starbucks card to everyone. We've already sent you yours. I always tell someone we'll send you the Starbucks card, but we also support 5 different organizations. I'll just tie them real quick. You can pick one to we'll make a donation for you. One is Unwed Mothers here in South Korea, North Korean refugee thing, the ex-Nazi thing that we're supporting now, which is really exciting, and then a peace organization between the Palestinians and the Jews. And there's another one that I cannot think. Can't think of. But yeah, what are your thoughts? Which one would you like?
Definitely unwed mothers in South Korea because I've seen the results of that. Man. Yeah, that's a horrible stigma, man. Of course.
Yeah.
So, bro, I watch K-dramas anyway. I love K-dramas, period.
All right. No, we're not going to. Please, if you say you listen to K-pop, I
don't listen. I don't listen to K-pop. I do not listen to K-pop.
You almost lost every ounce of respect that I had for you. But anyway, that being said, the 4 of the VIPs came on to our podcast, and one of them was talking about an organization he's working with called KUMPA, which is like Korean Unwed Mothers Association, something like that, family association. And then my mom was a unwed mother before she met my father. So we decided to start supporting that organization as well. So thank you for that. We will do that. Yeah. And just real quick, can you tell us how we can find you online?
You can find me at Blatant on YouTube. Just literally search Blatant Black Atheist. That name is on pretty much everything. Blatant on Instagram, Blatant on Twitter. I'm also on SoundCloud now. I'm a SoundCloud rapper. Mama, I made it. Hey.
Actually, that leads me. We've done all the main questions, but there was just one last one. The bonus question is, why is your rhyme so weak?
I knew you was gonna do it. I knew you was gonna do it.
No, you're all right, man. You're all right. Actually, I really like that one. Let's call out the abusive elements. Let's call it. Yeah, there's abusive elements for sure. The right wingers, the Trumpsters. I find more in common than I do with. I find more in common with like secular humanists. Honestly, people who are willing to value and respect everyone. I find more in common with those people than I do some of the extreme abusive elements of the right wing. So we can work together on that, and definitely in promoting mental health, because there is no shame. There is no shame whatsoever if you're atheist or Christian. Everybody suffers from mental, black, white, Mexican, purple, green, rainbow colored people. These are issues that as humans, it shouldn't matter if you're black or if you're an atheist or you're a Republican. There's an underlying empathy that I can feel for people who are just not living their best lives, and maybe you might find that inside of religion. Maybe you might find that inside of Islam. Maybe you might find that inside of Hinduism. But wherever you are right now, it's like this is what this channel is for. It's just having respect for you where you are right now. So we just, this is what this channel for, is just having some respectful conversations. And that being said, we want to thank you for joining us today at RG Podcast. Don't forget to visit our website at www.rgpodcast.com. Check us out: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, just about anywhere you can find someone, you can find us. So we want to leave you with this outro, and we look forward to seeing you back again. Goodbye.